My interest in law started when I was very young. Now, the irony is that my mom's gonna say it started when she came into the room, my bedroom, one day and saw that the Teddy and the Barbie were in a dispute over the candy. And I was sitting behind the desk and I was pretending to be the judge and letting the teddy bear tell his side of the story and letting the Barbie tell her side of the story. And I was probably around the age of 3. Now, my parents are going to say they don't know how or why this interest in the law started because no one in my family is in the legal field. No one's in law enforcement. No one had anything to do with the law. So they couldn't even figure out how did I present this concept of being a judge over who should have the candy. But this is where my love for the law would have started. By the time I get to second grade, so was that 4 or 5 years later, I had a substitute teacher. And you know when you have a substitute teacher, the substitute says, ask the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the story is, I blurted out, I want to be a judge. And she goes, what? A judge? Most of the other kids in the class are saying, you know, they want to be NFL players, football players, you know, and here I am yelling, I want to be a judge. And so she says to me, if you're interested in being a judge, do you know what all schooling is required for you to even become a judge if you decided to do that? Of course not. I'm in second grade. So because she was a substitute, but she stayed around and she helped with after school programs, she and I started going down this rabbit hole to figure out what was required, what all schooling was required to even get to this profession. And so at the time they had like computers and stuff, and so we were working through it in the library and all this stuff, and we actually wrote down the plan. The plan of how much schooling was required to even get to this career path of being an attorney and then eventually a judge. And so we would write down, because I mean, listen, it's second grade, so we had to get through elementary school and middle school and high school and college. And from that day on, once that plan was created, I executed the plan to the T. There was no gaps in the middle. There was no time frames or stall outs or let me take a year off. No. The plan was I'm getting to law school. And that was the plan. But of course, I don't realize till I get to law school, oh, I was supposed to graduate to be a lawyer? That's a whole nother story. Or wait, there's a bar exam after you pass law school? Like, that wasn't a part of the plan. You see, the plan was I want to get through elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. And that was the plan. Now, even still, it was what major when you get to college, what major would get you to law school? I had to learn about this stuff along the way because the plan didn't include that much details, right? And in high school, going back a little bit, but in high school, I would take AP classes with the nearby community college. And in my senior year of high school, the entire year, I would take a year full of college classes. So by the time I graduate high school, I already completed my first year in college. The plus and minus, at least on the student loan side, was I only had 3 years of loans for college. On the minus side, though, I was pretty young walking around this college campus, so that was interesting within itself. But I guess the most monumental part was when I was trying to get into the pre-law program, and the professor or the person who was leading the program, we're walking down the corridor in the college, and I'm asking him some questions like, hey, you know, what are some things I need to prepare for, like the LSAT exam to get into law school? What does that process look like? What are some things to expect when you get to law school? Like, what does the campus look like? What does the school environment look like? And he says, honestly, before we even get that far into details, and we're just walking, he's walking really fast. And he's like, honestly, let's just talk about your GPA before we even get that far. Huh? What's my GPA got to do with taking an exam? And I was like, okay, well, it's a 3.58. And he was like, yeah, no, there's no point of us talking about this. You won't even get to law school, so don't make a point. What? I done worked my butt off and took these AP classes. I've worked out all this stuff in college. I'm on the verge of being asked to take the master's program for the political science program that's at the school. And he says to me, yeah, no, law school probably isn't the way to go. Your GPA isn't high enough. Okay, bet. Great to know. Because at this point, oh, it's over. You can't tell me that and I'm just going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. I ain't used to that and I ain't true to that. So I went on a rampage to find any other resource, possibility, outcome, changes, whoever can help me at the school, because I was getting into law school because that was the plan. And that's what happened. I went through the program. I got my LSAT together. I found a retired judge. And I was able to get my questions answered about law school, about the LSAT from the retired judge. He ended up being an adjunct professor at the school. And I completely bypassed the pre-law program altogether because there would be no point of staying in the pre-law program or attempting to get in it if the coordinator is telling me it's a bust. All right, bet. Well, the one thing I did learn is there's always a loophole. You just got to understand the rules to find the loophole. And so I was able to get into the class with the adjunct professor that was a retired judge. He turns out to be the person who helps me write my letter of recommendation to get into law school. And I go to law school I applied and I got into law school because that was the plan. You know, usually when people talk about their life, they're always talking about what are some pivotal moments in your life. It's not just to tell a story about your life, but what were some pivotal moments or things that you work through, right? And so for me, I grew up in Los Angeles, California with migrant parents. You know the concept, coming off the boat. And they are the first ones to come to America. And out of everyone in my family, I was the first one born in America. Everything for me was a world in the middle. So I'm going home and I'm learning and engaging in the Jamaican culture. My first language would have been Patois because that's all they spoke. Then I'm going to school. The kids speak differently. And what's normal to them is completely abnormal to me. I then take what I learned at school and bring it home to help reintroduce my family to American culture, even though we're in America. All of my life to me is a learning curve because I'm constantly learning what are the rules of engagement, how to find the loopholes, and how to run in the middle of a loophole of anything that took place. So like, for example, I'm in high school and I'm taking AP classes because that's what they said you're supposed to do in private school. That's what they say is supposed to work for you by going to private school, right? Because I went to private school my whole life. And the community college professors would come to our school and teach the AP classes. And so I remember there was a time when there was a teacher and an older woman, and she comes into the class and she's doing attendance for the first day that she's there. She's reading everyone's name. Everybody else got normal names. John, Chris, Eric, regular names. Anyway, she goes through the attendance list and she look at my name. She go, shock. like hooked on phonics. It was quite interesting as I continued to stare at her, and instead of telling her what my name is, I wanted to see how she was gonna pronounce it. Shashi. Sha. It's only 12 of us in the class. I need you to understand. It ain't like it's a whole bunch of people. Shakeena. Now, you the English teacher. So when did a K turn into the sound of a Q? And now you want me to respect you, right? Because you the AP English teacher. But you just pronounce a K for a Q. Now the question becomes, is it me or is it you? And I'm going to sit here until you figure this out in front of all of us in the class, because why should I educate the AP English college professor how to pronounce my name? And instead of still attempting to pronounce my name, you know what she says instead? This first name has 3 syllables in it. Shakeena. And so because it has 3 syllables in the name, I want you to know that you're not going to be successful in America, because the 3 syllables indicates your ethnicity, and your ethnicity is going to hinder you in your future career endeavors. Okay. So my response to her is, Shakeena's present. And she goes, I will just call you Miss Melbourne. And I said, that's fine. A couple of things I learned from that. One, I don't take surnames lightly. So even clients that I have today, I typically call them by their last names. And they will sometimes be offended or be like, it's fine, just call me my first name. But it helped me to acknowledge the value of a last name in America. So that was one of my takeaways from that. But my second takeaway was she was onto something. I was offended when this all took place first, don't get me wrong. Later on, I discovered she was onto something, because as part of my senior year, I did like a study abroad program in Washington, D.C. with my college, scratch that. You get to say that in the law, so don't judge me. You get to say, change that. So anyway, I get to college, and in college, my sophomore/junior year, I would do a study abroad program in the U.S. study abroad, whatever. So got to go to DC for a couple of months. I got to live in the building, and we had classes downstairs, and we got to do an internship anywhere we wanted. So I'm doing this program, and before you start the program, you get to apply to all the places you want to do your internships for, and then you get to land a internship. And once you land an internship, you're guaranteed to be able to do this study abroad program. Great. I applied to over 50 locations because, remember, a part of the plan, I wanted to go into the law. So it ain't that hard to find 50 legal positions in Washington, D.C., right? Okay. Yeah, no, it actually was very difficult. I applied to 50 locations and only got accepted to 1 3 days before our deadline to get into the program. Susie, however, applied to 5 and got into all 5 internships. And all I could do was reflect back on what the AP English teacher had said that day. I wonder if it's the 3 syllables in my first name. Maybe she was onto something. But it started to make me question my name or my ethnicity or the value that my mom saw when she decided to name me Shakeena, which in Arabic means princess, which is where she got it from, which is a Middle Eastern woman, and all of this stuff, because nobody cared about the story of the name. They just cared about the fact that if you were Middle Eastern, you'd have had a Middle Eastern last name, but Melbourne is not Middle Eastern, so you're probably not a Middle Eastern person, and so we'll just wean you out to the side. Maybe you are really a Shakeena, or whatever other name of some sort that the phonics, hooked on phonics, don't work for it. And so it was just kind of like, well, now this is interesting. Should I just go by my initials? You know, like how you got TDJs. So I was just going to be SG Melbourne. Like, I mean, would you know? Maybe? I don't know. And so I took that experience, and instead of always being offended by it, I did something different. I found a loophole. You can't take my experience from me, and you can't take my education from me. So I'm going to outwork everybody here. For everything they did, and every time somebody said my name wrong, I'm just going to outwork you. I'll work harder than you. I'll work longer hours than you. I will do better than you. I will aim for perfection. I am going to do it all because I'm going to prove your stereotypes wrong. Was that the right thought process? I don't know. But did it work and me excel? Yeah. I didn't look for the handouts. I didn't look for the help. I didn't look for the aid. I went to find as much answers as possible. And once I discovered the rules of engagement to play the game, I would then find the loophole and continue to win because nobody was following suit in the loophole. They were still trying to follow the rules.